Thanks for joining me again for another session on how to brand yourself. Today I want to tell you the 10 steps to branding yourself as basically anything, but today I'm going to use the example of branding yourself as an author. So why am I using this example? Well, about 7 years ago, or maybe it was 8 years ago, I suddenly decided I was going to write a book. I had never written a book before. It was a fiction book, and I had some ideas in my head, and I decided to put them down on paper or on my computer. So I sat down, I wrote a book. I know that's insane, but I did it. And so what I'm wanting to tell you about is how to take something like a book or something that you've done and then suddenly turn it into a brand. How do you do that? So I'm going to give you the 10 steps that I have found will help you very much, and you can apply it to almost anything. It'll be a little booky related for this one, so bear with me. So step number 1, write a book. All right? Step number 1 can also be do something really awesome for somebody. Make a first website, build a website for somebody. Whatever it is, it's the first thing you do is do the thing that you want to be known for. So in my case, I wrote a book. Step number 2 was to actually get it published and make it look good. So you can do this great thing that you've done. You can build a website, for example. You can do a skill for someone. You can create something. But if you don't actually publish it and get it out there, it's not going to be able to be branded. So you actually have to button it up and get it out. That's step number 2. Pretty easy so far, right? Step number 3 is build a website for it. Now, I've talked in the past about branding yourself as a person online as a website, but this would be a website for your product. In this case, it needs to show the product. So for me, I had the book. I had the book cover, a picture of the book, some excerpts from the book, about me as an author, where you could get it, all of those things. So I just put some information online and allowed people to be able to go and purchase it. So that was step number 3. Step number 4 was a little bit of advertising. I didn't spend any money on this, but I built myself a little video. The video was basically a trailer of the book, so it was a minute and a half long, and I put some cool pictures on it, made some nice music, and this was back in 2007 or 2009, so it was just fine for what I needed. I put it on YouTube, and now I had a website about my book, a book, and a trailer for the book. That was it. Then I went ahead, so now I've got this online presence. Now what am I going to do? Now, I know it can get really overwhelming trying to brand some new skill that you have, but really just start simple. What I did in this case was I started reaching out to schools and bookstores. Nothing fancy. All I did was basically pick up the phone or shoot an email to a school and say, hey, I wrote a book. Would you like me to come and speak at your school about this book? And actually, I got a lot of great responses. People were like, that's awesome. Middle school book, it was a urban fantasy, another story for another time, fiction book. And so I was able to go into all of these schools, high schools and middle schools, and talk about creative writing, talk about how I wrote the book, talk about how they could be authors too, and just become very, inspirational for people. I also read parts of my book at bookstores. I would call the bookstore. They're always looking for more authors because, again, people have these skills, but they don't get out there and talk about them. So they were excited for me to be willing to just come and talk about it. So I went to schools, I talked about creative writing, and remember, I had never written a book before. This was brand new for me. But because I had done it, and because I was willing to talk about it, I was now an expert in this field. So I reached out to schools. That was step number 5. Step number 6 was I put up a forum. Now, this can change for everybody, but basically what this means is engaging with people on the website where people were able to have read the book and then talk about it with me. This could be a networking event for different kinds of things, but for me, it was a forum on my website. A lot of times what happened was teenagers would go on and they would write, oh, I love this part about the book, and then people would discuss it. And then randomly I would have little posts where I would say things like, hey, everybody write a poem or post something that they've written lately, and I tried to encourage people. I also did something else that could be part of this little engaging experience, which was starting a book club. I might recommend that even more than an online forum. It's kind of an in-person forum. So if you have some sort of skill and you're trying to create yourself as an expert in this skill, go ahead and have a little group put together where you talk about the skill and you'd help people understand it, and you each can help and encourage each other. So we had a book club and each person was writing a book over a year. It was very It was very encouraging, very exciting, and also continued to help brand me as an author. Step number 7 was getting reviewed. For me, and being an author, what I did was I actually sent my book to about 40 or 50, maybe 30 or 40 different people. Some of them were online. There were people that normally just read books and review them. Bloggers. I had people that write for magazines, but mostly I did bloggers. So I had bloggers read this book. I sent them a free copy. I asked them to read it and review it. And I actually got a lot of good reviews. And because of that, it really increased my search engine optimization. It increased the people that were going to purchase the book. And I actually ended up selling books because of those online reviews. Of course, you need to have a good product if you're going to do this, but whatever it is, whether it's a restaurant or a website business or a small company you're trying to start or any kind of skill you're trying to brand, make sure that you have Google reviews or people reviews in the specific area that you're in. Bloggers are very, very helpful. Number 8 is social media. I know this can be really scary. So because it's so huge. And I always talk about social media being scary because I'm scared of it. It's so big. There's so much to do. So what I want you to think of for this initial branding this in a 10-step process is think of social media as a giant event where all these people are here and you can easily filter out the people you don't want to talk to or don't want to hear from you and find the people who do want to talk to you. I used Twitter this way. So what I did back when I launched my book was I went to Twitter and I started searching, and I searched for people who were just reading books or looking for book suggestions, and I found out whether or not they were fiction readers or not. And yes, I was a little bit of a stalker. And again, this is kind of like if you're at a party and you're overhearing someone talking about how they love fiction books, and you walk up to them and you can say, "Hey, I love fiction too. I just wrote a novel. I'd love for you to check it out." Just imagine that personal touch is so exciting to somebody who might want to read another book. And you're an author, so you can now have a conversation with them and allow them to read the book. And yes, it's one by one by one, and it takes time, but social media can help you with that while you're reaching a larger audience. Instead of just splattering yourself out there and hoping people find you, be proactive. Look for people who have the need that you are offering. With books, it was people that like to read. If it's websites, try to find people that might be might be needing a website or might be needing some creative help or consulting help. And just start answering questions and talking to them like you would in real life. So, number 9 is speaking. Now, I've already talked about going out and talking in schools about my book, but then I did a step further, and ironically, after doing all steps 1 through 8, were like finishing a book, getting it published, building all the website and presence online, I actually became this expert in authorship. So I began to speak, and I would talk to authors about how to improve your online presence for authors. So some of these are a little bit repetitive, but they're really step by step. Start by talking to people who don't know anything about the skill and helping them. Build a group like a forum. And then the last step is helping the people who do what you do so that you establish a high-level thought leadership capability in this space. And the very last one is keep it up and write another book. So if you are an author like me, I actually had to now go back and start the process all over again, because here's what happens. When you start out, you're here, you start building up your presence and your credibility and your speaking engagements and all that. But then if you don't do anything, it starts to tip down again, and then people don't actually remember you anymore. So then you have to start back at the beginning, and you're a little bit elevated because you have this brand, and continue doing the same thing again. And then every time it will go up a little bit higher, and you'll reach a little bit farther audience because your followers will continue with you. So 10 steps: write the book, get it published, build a website, build some advertising like a trailer, reach out to schools, people that want to hear about your skill, create a forum, get people to review whatever it is that you have, in this case a book, then engage with social media, make sure you're online and finding people who might need you, speak at events to people who also have your skill, and create thought leadership. And then number 10 is start it over again and keep up the good work to continue being known for this skill. Those are the 10 things that I highly recommend, and best of luck to you. And if you ever need any help, be sure to reach out at christyharner.com, and I would be happy to help you with your brand and getting you started online. Best of luck.